works. Did I not? Fuck. Oh.
Hello, everybody. We'll get started in a minute. Welcome to the first episode of Enduring Ideal. I've been going back and forth on what I wanted to call like a news show, and it came down to a couple finalists. I might stick with this, I might not. The finalists were Enduring Ideal, Oath to Order, Dull Ember, and I forget what the other one was. There's a couple. All very suitably somber and depressing, because that's just the way I roll. So we have a lot of stuff to deal with today. We are going to start on with firstly a little update on our friend Will Stencel, because Will Stencel he's a man's man. He is that he is the kind of guy who we all wish that we could be. So, for those of you who haven't been following the drama, it is as G-slur and retarded as you might think. So, what wound up happening is Will Stencel has been. Let me see here. Will Stencel. Fuck, I'm trying to think of how I even explain this. It's so retarded. Sorry, I'm just sharing this the stream on some other stuff. Okay, so Will Stencel a couple months back was contacted by one of his major detractors, who fake doxed himself. And the guy, so the guy fake doxed himself. He gave Will Stencel his school name and the name of some random student who goes to like Washington University or something like that, Washington State University. So Will Stencel believed that that was 100% his real identity, and he started posting like his identity, like the text from him. And he started saying like, "Oh, this guy's a member of this club. It sure would be a shame if someone were to tell them that he was a neo-Nazi." And he was just trying to coordinate like a life ruination campaign of this guy. And then somebody actually said, "Look, this is like bad optics. It doesn't look good for your political career if you're deliberately trying to like just ruin some random dude's life. So Will Stencel had a spurg out over that, and he said, "Look, if he's the one who gave me a fake name, then it's his fault if I ruin the random dude's life, even if I know it's not him." So that was the cope we got out of Will Stencel. So that guy asked that. Then a guy's like, "Dude, this is bad optics. You shouldn't be trying to like do this on your Twitter account. It's obvious that this guy was trolling you, and he's trying to get you to do obviously bannable offenses so people can flag your Twitter account." Now, Will Stencel was not happy about that. That guy was a detractor, even though he was giving him, in my view, very sane advice. So he got his followers to mass flag that guy's account down. And he got removed from Twitter. So once again, the guy who he got flagged down is not the guy who is not the guy who he doxed. It was some dude who was just like, look, this is bad optics, and that offended him more than the person who was logging him. So Will Stencil's been doing that. I don't mind saying it. I have been reporting all of his docs videos, all of his docs posts, because I believe that they're against the terms of service of Twitter. I mean, they are like if you go to the report button, it says posting people's personal information. I was told in one of my reports that it doesn't meet the definition of a threat for him to say that I'm going to tell the mountain climbing organization that you participate in that you're a neo-Nazi and get you kicked out of it. That is not a threat, apparently. So he's just spurging out. I mean, honestly, I hope that Will Stencel does get banned, because he deserves it, because he's such a piece of shit. Like, I don't know. I generally don't report people, but I mean, come on. The dox is fake. The fact that the dox is fake doesn't take away from the fact that he thinks he's doxing this guy and he's trying to ruin his life because he's mad because the guy made fun of him on the internet. I just kind of draw the line at that. There's a couple things I think it's okay to flag people over. I'd say that is one. If the person's running like a fake flagging campaign, that's one. And if they're like a pedo or something, then that's fine. But that is Will Stencel. He is a real human being and a real hero, as it were. Okay, so let me know if the stream is going okay. My internet here is atrocious, so it can be hard to tell. Anyways, so let us talk about the upcoming UK general election, because it's looking like it's going to be it's going to be like the Ukrainian war of elections, wherein everything and nothing will change simultaneously. So, for those of you who need a little bit of history about how the British politics have been working, and I know we're looking at Wikipedia, but sue me. So, the 70s and 80s in the UK were dominated by Margaret Thatcher. She won a series of huge majority government. Well, I guess not maybe huge, but a series of majority governments, and was able to do a lot to remake Britain in her image. We got neoliberal policies, a lot of other stuff during this time period. I don't like Margaret Thatcher personally for a variety of different reasons, but I think she was one of the few members of the Tories to vote for legalizing abortion, for instance. Yeah, so Margaret Thatcher won 3 elections. Then she got replaced with John Major. John Major somehow managed to win a 4th election. To this day, I don't know if anyone really knows it. I think Labour was just really arrogant and incompetent. And then we had the Blair Revolution, which is kind of a major political realignment along the same During this time period in the U.S., you had the Republican Revolution, where the Republicans took the House for the first time in a generation, and the Senate, and would continue to kind of dominate both for the remainder of the 20th and the first part of the 21st century. So Tony Blair won a supermajority. I think that might be the largest. I think this might be the largest majority ever in UK history. There might be one that was higher. I think it was 1916 or something. Might have been higher. But yeah, so Blair won a series of majority governments before being replaced by Gordon Brown. Nobody liked Gordon Brown, and he was replaced by David Cameron. We then had the years of the coalition between David Cameron and Nick Clegg. This saw gay marriage being passed. This saw like increases in immigration. This saw like the most neocon, just awful. Just I don't know. It's hard to tell really. Like I know people say there's no difference between the parties in the U.S. and in Canada, but there really is in the U.K. Like it's really bad in the U.K. Compared to pretty much anywhere else on Earth. There is less difference between the Conservatives and the Liberals. The only difference is really that in Labour Party. The only real difference is the Labour Party's base is immigrants, and they give money to them. And the Tory Party's base is wealthy immigrants, and they give money to them. So it's, yeah. Anyway, so we had the Cameron years, and the Cameron years were pretty awful. Cameron had a couple minorities. The thing to keep in mind when we're talking about UK politics that is slightly different than some other countries, the Sinn Féin members do not sit. So there is a certain number of Sinn Féin members who win in North Ireland. I'm just trying to see how many it is. So they do not sit in the House of Commons. So the actual practical majority threshold is actually lower than how it appears because 4 out of the... so you have to get a majority out of 600 and... Okay, so that would be 6, 4, 6... Yeah, so an actual majority is 323 instead of 326 because Sinn Féin does not take their seat. So something maybe kind of interesting to just keep in mind. Let's see here. We had the Theresa May election. She managed to win a small majority. Or no, not a majority. I think she had a confidence and supply agreement with the DUP, or the Democratic Unionist Party, which is the right-wing pro-UK party in Northern Ireland, that gave them the seats that they needed for a governing coalition. For those of you who aren't aware, so in a parliamentary system, and this might be helpful for Americans, the Prime Minister can only serve as long as he maintains the confidence of the House. I'm just trying to find where a picture of this is. So, on certain bills, they are matters of confidence, and if the governing party loses the election, if they lose a vote on a confidence matter, then the current government has to dissolve and start a new election. So, confidence matters can include major laws. They always include budgets, stuff like that. It can kind of be a little confusing what is and what isn't. But like in comparison, Obama's budgets I don't think ever were passed. If that had been a parliamentary system and Obama was a prime minister, that would have triggered an election each time his budget failed. If like Obamacare had failed, that probably would have been something to trigger an election or something, or a thing like that. So, what a confidence and supply agreement is it's not a formal coalition. So, in a formal coalition, let's say that when the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats were in a coalition, a certain number of cabinet seats would be reserved for the Liberal Democrats as the coalition party, because they're considered, if not equal partners, they're both active participants in government. A confidence and supply agreement is that the DUP agreed to vote with the government on any issues that might get them removed from office, provided they get certain things in return. So, like in Canada, the Justo regime currently has a minority government, and they stay in power with the supply and confidence agreement with the NDP. So, yeah. So the NDP don't get cabinet seats, but if they want something, they just tell the Liberals, and the Liberals do it for them. Just having some coffee. I'm drinking McDonald's coffee today because we're being fancy. Yes, I know I have very pleb tastes in a lot of things, but I like to think of them as being like a country aristocrat taste. So then we had the Tories won like this massive victory for God knows what reason in 2019 with Boris Johnson. I think there was some like expectation that Boris Johnson was going to come in, that he was going to be this big like populist. He was going to save Britain and all that kind of stuff. That he was like the Eurosceptic guy. And so what has followed has been like 4 years of just constant dysfunction and insanity. Yeah, McDonald's coffee is really good. I got some from for home actually. My dad told me that back in university it used to be like something that they would dare each other with, where they would like bet each other to go try McDonald's coffee because it was so bad. McDonald's, at least in Canada, did like a big rebranding campaign, and they portrayed themselves like as more of a, I don't know if upscale is the right term, but more of like a respectable fast food place. So they started offering like lattes and stuff like that, and like a wider range of foods and kind of more fancy food, or not necessarily fancy, but you know what I mean. And one of the things they did is they completely changed their coffee. It's now like 100% Arabica. I like it. It's a very nice, mild flavor to it. If that makes sense. But I prefer it to Tim's. So I'm Canadian, and this is like always a big thing here, is most of the people here just swear by Tim's. I don't think Tim's is that good. It's cheap, it's hot, and you get a lot of it, but it kind of tastes like battery acid to me. So, I don't know. If I'm getting coffee at home, I like Boris Not Coffee was a disappointment. Yeah, no, Tim's is like meh. It's gone downhill. McDonald's is good. I'm not the biggest Starbucks fan. I just like, it's not bad. It just tastes burnt. Yeah, I don't know. There's not. I just generally prefer to drink it at home. I like. I've started to buy Nabob. I actually kind of like Nabob a bit, but like I said, I have extremely pleb taste in coffee. I normally just buy whatever's cheap. So, I've never got into stuff like lattes or like fancy drinks, or they just seem expensive, and they just seem like, and I know I'm like a fat fuck, but they just seem like a fuck ton of empty calories. You were disappointed that Argent drinks Mickey D's coffee. Look, I like McDonald's has some good. They have dollar drink days. They also have iced coffee. Their iced coffee is pretty good too. Anyways, just complete total side note, but that's what you come here for. You come for our geopolitical analysis combined with a brief history of McDonald's and Tim Hortons coffee. For any of you people in outside of Canada, have you ever been to Tim Hortons? It's I was actually so when I was in the UK, I was staying in Swindon because it was a railroad junction. So I never actually went anywhere in the city. I just had a hotel across from the rail station, and I got there kind of early. So I'm like, you know what? Why don't I go to Wales just to say I've been to Wales? So I hopped on a train and I went over to Cardiff. And I was just kind of wandering around Cardiff, and then there was a Tim Hortons there. And I was like, why the fuck is there a Tim Hortons in Wales? So I went down. I had a coffee, and it sucked. It was not very good, but it's that's how that went. It was funny though. It's funny to go to Tim Hortons there. Oh yeah, the 401. Yeah, I know the 401 well. Been on it many times. So, let's see. Okay, so anyway, so Boris Johnson came to power. His term in office. So to be fair to a lot of the people who came to power during COVID, Timbits are crack. Timbits are basically crack. Um, okay, we're gonna take a little field trip. Okay, so for those of you who aren't from Canada, we have the Timbit here. So the Timbit is, I think, just supposed to be like the hole in the center of the donut. So they are these little mini donuts, and they come in a whole bunch of different varieties. You have the honey dipped ones, the chocolate ones, the sour cream ones, the cake ones, like the plain cake ones. I like the birthday cake ones. The sour cream ones are really good. There's like a mini jelly donut. And these are kind of like if you go to any meeting in Canada, there's probably going to be a whole bunch of Timbits there. Just because they're cheap and delicious. And they're kind of like crack. There's also a coconut one. You can just sit there and eat like a whole. It's kind of gross. Like I could easily just sit there and eat like 20 of them, just because they're so tasty. But they're like obviously super high in calories. Anyways, yeah. So a lot of the people who came to power during like the 2020s, to be fair to them, and a lot of people will shit on Trump, and justifiably so, but a lot of the people who we had a lot of hope in, which was like Bolsonaro, Trump, I guess you could say Boris Johnson if you wanted to go with that. To be fair to these people, they got hit with COVID. And COVID was like a once in a generation total disaster. So when people talk about like the debt that Trump ran up and that the spending he ran up and stuff like that, to be fair to Trump, you did have COVID, which was an unmitigated global disaster. Whereas like Bush ran up a bunch of money and there was no disaster. There was 9/11 and that led to stuff. U.S. national debt. Yeah, so like Trump massively ran up the debt. I'm not going to pretend he didn't, but like so did Bush, and so did Obama. But they didn't have to deal with the whole country getting shut down. So take from that what you will. Also, by the way, for those of you who aren't aware, U.S. trillion in debt every. So U.S. debt is currently growing at a rate of $1 trillion every 100 days. Like, this is why this whole thing is bullshit. Like, what is the size of student loans, U.S.? Student loans total. U.S. Like, honestly, just, like, who cares? Just fucking cancel the student loans. Like, they're debating over the whatever it was, the 61 billion for Ukraine. That's literally like a week. Less than like 1 week of what the U.S. Runs up in debt, and that's just debt. That's not even the stuff that's funded through taxes. Like the U.S. government spends so much money. Like it's such bullshit. Whenever they talk about they don't have money for anything, it's yeah. Anyway, sorry, getting distracted. Okay, so we had Boris Johnson, and Boris Johnson lasted a little while. Then he got kicked out. Then we had Liz Truss for literally a month, and she got kicked out. And then I haven't come up with a nickname for Rishi Sunak. Just look at him. He was, I think he's a nominee for Effler as a year. I'm just looking at this. Yeah, so Rishi Sunak just became leader of the Conservative Party because I don't know. He is like more or less. I thought no one could beat Macron for being like a face of neoliberalism, for being like the face of like the the rootless cosmopolitan elite that govern basically every Western country. I didn't think that anyone could be more of that than Macron. Because to me, like, Macron represents any stereotype you have about a soy boy or a bug man or, like, finance controlling government. The thing that makes Macron so pathetic is, like, he's a decent-looking guy. He's tall. He's rich. He's powerful. And he had to go with... I'm not even going to show a picture for it because I just ate breakfast a little while ago and I don't want to brile my stomach. But he had to marry like a woman 20 years older than him who's hideous and raise his wife's kids who are like the same age as him. It's just... I didn't think you could have more of an empty suit than Macron, but then you got Rishi Sunak, who's just some fucking Indian guy who... I think he was a banker. Yeah, he was like a banker, a hedge fund manager. Basically just global finance just put him in charge of the UK. And he has been, I think, the most... yeah, Macron is at least French. That is, I will give him that. Like, he's just the biggest empty suit. So, Sunak's term has probably been... Maybe if someone from Britain's here, they can correct me. Is he the most unpopular prime minister in UK history? Like, has there been a more unpopular leader of Britain? I'm trying to think if there has been anyone who is less who people like less in the history of Britain than Rishi Sunak. Because I don't know of a single person. I've never heard or met somebody who supports him. Like, I saw people who supported Boris Johnson. I saw people who supported David Cameron. I saw some people who tried to make a case for Theresa May. I even saw people who supported Tony Blair, particularly back in the day. I can't think of, like, a single person I've ever met or heard of who likes Rishi Sunak. So, under his government, the Conservative Party, which I think is often was considered the natural governing party, for a long time. See, a lot of countries will have what's known as the natural governing party, which, by the virtue of the their base, the parts of the country that they are popular in, they have a large floor built in for their electability. So they're kind of the default winner. My understanding, because the Conservatives do so well in England, and in particular in a first past the post system, because almost all of like the rural, all the seats I think in England outside of like the major cities are just solid Tory. They have a very low ceiling, a low floor. And for most of the 20th century, I think they just basically coasted through on that. In Canada, it was the Liberal Party until basically Harper came around, wherein because they had They had the East Coast, about half the seats in Quebec, half the seats in Ontario, and part of BC. So they had a very high electoral floor. So they would just tend to win unless something really bad happened and there was a huge upset. Um, So the Tories, to my understanding, and maybe once again, the people in the comments section want to correct me, were the natural governing party of UK, but they have just become so hated. No one can list like a single thing that they've done that's been good. Like I'm not even getting into Project Ukraine. They went all in on Project Ukraine. Um, Boris Johnson famously destroyed the Istanbul peace conference and ended any attempt to resolve the whole thing uh, from the beginning. The economy, I believe the UK is in a recession. Let me see here. Yeah, I think the UK is actually in a recession at the moment. Energy prices have massively increased. There's a huge spending deficit. The military is in tatters. They have no way to replace any of the equipment they gave Ukraine. Let me see. World Bank. Let's see. I'm just trying to find the by country. I want United Kingdom. So UK is, yeah, I don't believe it's 4.3%. There's no way it's 4.3%. Well, that's 2022. I'm not sure what it is for 2023. Let me see. What is Germany's? Because Germany's is, I think, either neutral or uh, yeah, contracting. Yeah, Germany is 1.8. What's France? France is 2.5. Yeah, there's pretty anemic growth out of most of these countries. My understanding is Russia's economy is actually growing quite quick. Oh, wait. No, 2020, negative 21. Maybe because this is 2022. Let me see if I can find 2023. Yeah, okay, here we go. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. Okay, so yeah, so UK has a GDP growth rate of 0.5%, which is awful. Um, France is point 0.7, Italy's point 0.7, Germany is point 0.2, Russia is 3.2. Um, you like Canada's is awful. Basically just some of the basically it looks like just the BRICS countries are doing are seeing economic growth at the moment. Um, how does Ukraine have economic growth? Oh yeah, AA went on the Duran, which I thought was kind of cool. I had never seen his face or his real name before. I just heard his voice, and I'm like, that sounds very familiar. I'd recognize that voice anywhere. So, anyways, so yeah, so the UK. Let me see here, UK. If we can find this. Um, just trying to find if there's something more recent, because my understanding is electricity prices have massively increased in the United Kingdom. Uh, I can't find a recent one. People from the UK, maybe you can back me up on this one. My understanding is since the Ukraine war started, energy prices have massively increased. So I know I have some people from glorious Britannia there. So yeah, it's not good. Things aren't looking good in the UK. Rishi Sunak is just obsessed with Project Ukraine. He has open contempt for the British people. Literally, like I said, I don't think a single person likes him. So, what are you going to do? Rishi Sunak sucks, so we're going to bring in Carl Stammer. We're going to be in Carl Steimer or whatever. Where is it? Here we go. Leadership approval. Like Germany, Germany's okay. So let's see here. So Rishi Sunak has in some polls negative 50% approval rating, which I haven't even. I don't know if I've even seen that. That's like Kathleen Wynne numbers. Like the only politician I can think of who had approval that low was Kathleen Wynne in the former premier of Ontario. Even like when he was unelectedly came to power, he was already at like negative 20, negative 30. Now he's at negative 40 to 50. Like, how is that even possible? Negative 72% disapprove. Let's see how Carl Stammer is doing. Carl Stammer has like people also fucking hate him. So this is like a race to the bottom. This is the guy with like the average of negative, I don't know, we'll say that's negative like 15% approval versus negative 40% approval. And that's kind of that's the election that we're going into here. These are the two geniuses. And then we have the head of the Liberal Democrats who's also at like negative 20. Let's see. Do they have Nigel Farage? Everyone hates Nicola Sturgeon too. I'm just let's see. Do they have Farage? And Nigel Farage also. Or no, they haven't done Nigel Farage recently. So this is the election. Now keep it like just keep these numbers in mind. What is Biden's approval rating? Let's see what Trump's approval rating is just for what is his approval rating? Okay. So in contrast, Trump has a negative 12% approval rating. Trump, the convicted felon. Trump, the guy the media hammers every day. Rishi Sunak's is like 30 points higher than Donald Trump's. Let's look at Joe Biden. Dark Side Brandon is 16%. So for comparison, the head of the Labour Party, so they have him at 50. Dark Side Brandon is at 55, but his favorability is lower. So, yeah, Carl Stammer is about the same as Dark Side Brandon. Maybe a little bit better. And he's the favorite to win the election. And when you're basically you're polling, people hate you more than they hate Biden and Trump, and you're the favorite to win the election. That's a bad sign. So if we look at the upcoming election, the Conservatives are going to be losing half of their votes, at least according to the current predictions. They will be going from 44% of the vote to 22% of the vote. Labor is going to get, I think that's a supermajority. I think a supermajority is generally defined as either 60% or more or 65% or more. Basically, it's just you have such a massive majority, you can basically just pass whatever you want. In U.S. terms, the supermajority would, I think, allows you to overcome filibusters, but also it's insurance in case part of your party tries to revolt. So if you have a couple people who will vote against the leadership, then wait, what's this? Someone's emailing me something. Okay. It was a scam disguising itself as a scam alert. So let's look at what the most recent polls are for the upcoming election, with this being an account. But So I think what we can all agree with is that nobody likes any of the major parties in the UK, and Labour is just going to win by the sole version of not being the Tories. And let's see, okay, UK journalists. Let me see, where is the opinion polls? Okay, opinion polling. Okay, so Reform UK is basically UKIP 3.0. So we had UKIP, and then that didn't work out in the long run, and then we had the Brexit Party, and then that succeeded in its purpose, which was to get the UK out of the EU. And then the current Nigel Farage's UKIP 3.0 is the Reform Party. Reform UK, which is, to my understanding, a right-wing populist party. Nigel Farage, I was initially not in charge of it, but then he jumped on board, I think it like literally a couple of days ago. Now, the thing that's interesting and that a lot of people are saying is the Tories are doing so badly, despite only having like 15% of the vote share. Reform is actually competitive with the Conservatives. It's actually within the context of it's comparable. Now the thing is, because UK uses the first past the post system, it's quite possible that Reform could get up to 20% of the vote and win no seats. That is certainly a possibility. And the Conservatives will probably not reach 0 seats just because of how the electoral maps tend to work in these countries. But yeah, they're like some random current version of UKIP is almost within striking distance of them. I mean, if you consider that these polls are probably, I'd imagine, margin of error plus or minus 3%, they could be at the same level of support. No, I know that Farage was basically the power behind the throne of Reform, but he only really directly took over it. I don't know, is Reform a big brand in the UK? I feel like UKIP was a much bigger brand. Like, that had been built up over a longer period of time that people were more aware of. Reform just kind of seems like we needed another platform to have Nigel Farage just run one more time to get the old gang back together. Or something like that. But you have that. There's some other minor parties. Specifically, we have George Galloway's Worker Party of Britain. I'm not sure if they're going to run any significant, if they're going to run that many candidates. But the thing is that nobody likes any of the major parties. Yeah, my understanding is Reform doesn't really have an identity. I feel like UKIP had much more of an identity and much more of an infrastructure. Maybe that's to the advantage that Reform is kind of this amorphous mass, because that makes it harder for the media to smear them. I mean, they have less of a brand, but they also have less baggage than what UKIP had. So we'll see how that goes, but I don't think anybody likes any of them. Like, nobody likes the Conservatives. Nobody likes the Liberal Dems. Nobody likes the SNP anymore. The Green Party. Does anyone even vote for the Green Party in the UK? Maybe they do. Maybe they do vote for the Green. Maybe some people do vote for the Green Party. I don't know. They sound really bad, though. Then we have George Galloway. So, why? So now that I've rambled on for like an hour about nothing, what is kind of my take on the UK election? Why is it being called now? What is the plan? Why is it that that Rishi Sunak would call this election now. He could have waited another like 6 months to a year. He could have called this, I think, at the beginning of 2025. So why would he call an election when his party's going to get completely devastated? Probably the worst result in the entire history of the Conservative Party. There is an actual the speculation that I heard from Alexander Mercouris, and I think this is correct, is that the uniparty that controls the UK, the bankers, the people who watch BBC, the special interest groups, the people who all go to Eton and Harvard and Oxford and like just basically the upper class or professional class or whoever who have their common culture and common interests are somewhat indifferent to whether Labour or the Tories are in power. They do okay under both systems. They are both within the range of permissible thought. The concern is if you're having a situation like as we showed, where people fucking hate Rishi Sunak and they hate Carl Stammer and they hate the Conservatives and they hate Labour and they hate the Liberal Dems and they hate the SNP, that within this environment, as difficult as it is for a new party to break in, you might actually have a real political change in the UK for the first time in a generation. You might actually have a new party emerge, or the Conservatives have to get reformed, or Labour splits up over the Palestine issue, or something actual happens. So I think what Rishi Sunak was told is,
Rishi, you gotta take one for the team. We know you don't want to be the preem of Britain anymore. We get you a nice cushy job at the hedge fund. We need you to call an election and get our boy Carl Stammer in power. And once he's in power, then you can go off to America and we'll give you billions of dollars. Because we got this George Galloway guy. And we got this Nigel Farage and these other people. We can't let them get power, Rishi. We can't let them get any kind of power.
So I think that's basically how it happened. Sorry, let me just have a sip of coffee. Is they were afraid of real political change, so Rishi Sunak just decided to take one for the team. Take one for the team and throw his party under the bus, but we'll get a Labour supermajority. Labour can, I don't know, when they get their supermajority, they can just pass more restrictive policies. I don't know, change election laws, change funding laws, bring in more hate speech laws to try to crush the minor parties, both on the left and the right, to try to prevent any kind of political change. So I think it's a desperate Hail Mary. Will it work? Probably. I mean, Reform UK is coming up, but if they had another 6 months to get ready, if George Galloway did, if some of the other minor parties had another 6 months or so to get things ready and going, then that might have helped. That might have worked. That might have changed things, but we're just going to rush it through and the Labour Party is just going to win a default election. Now, is this going to work long term? That's the other question. Because they'll get their supermajority. They won't have to worry about elections for 4 or 5 years. They can keep doing Project Ukraine. They can keep doing... What even is Labour's platform? Let me see here. Election platform comparison. Okay, let me see here. Compare the manifestos. Let me see what the supposed manifestos are. Okay, that's 20. I'm looking for the 2024. It'd be funny if they didn't even have one. Because, like, why would it even matter at this point in time? I'm just trying to see like if there's even a okay, UK election. What do we know? Okay. Manifesto pledges. Give me like a table or something. I don't want to read all of this shit. I don't know. I don't think they even like. Does the BBC even have one? Okay, you know what? I'm just so fucking tired of this. That the whole fucking soy jack thing has to stop. Like, I don't care if it helps in the algorithm. Just fucking stop it. It's disgusting. It pisses me off. I see it and it makes me want to like smash the computer screen because literally everybody's doing it now. The woke whatever it is. It's just it's so fucking G-slur. It's so G-slur. Are they even? No, I don't think. I don't think there is even a comparison of them that's been posted. If they come out with an I side with, maybe I'll do an I side with. But what is that? Okay, BBC. Okay, well, so I will say this. The fact that they do not on the front page of the BBC have some sort of like comparison chart or something is just it's like it needs to stop. It's awful. It's awful. Like in Canada, whenever there's an election, every newspaper will normally on the front page of their website have some sort of comparison between them. The point is, I don't think anybody knows what the difference is. This is just to run it out. It's just gonna have to run it out. I married the love of my life in a Ukraine bunker, and then he was killed. What is this? Like. Sounds like a fucking sitcom. Is that the sequel to Servant of the People? Okay, I can't even look at. Okay, I can't even look at this. The BBC just triggers me too much. Not as much as the CBC does, but it does trigger me. It's painful to look at. So we have that. Now let's take a look at the EU elections. Now, do the EU elections even matter? And the answer is pretty much no. As far as I can determine, basically nothing in the EU is decided democratically. I don't really know what the EU Parliament even does. My understanding is that just the EU Commission just kind of does everything. And there's little to no input from any of the involved parties. They just get completely ignored and sidelined. So, the only thing I guess it really does kind of indicate is how people within Europe are feeling. But I mean, it doesn't particularly matter. That doesn't really matter either because the EU does not reflect the interests at all of any of the parties, of any of the peoples of Europe, and they have open disdain for all of them. Okay, so the current prediction is that the European, the conservative reformists and identity and democracy will both get quite a few seats. It doesn't really look like the it's going to change that much left. So I guess the EPP will still maintain their plurality. Basically, I think what happens with the EU Commission, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is regardless of what happens, there's just a coalition between the Social Democrats, the People's Party, and the Liberals, and they just have a permanent. And then just who is in charge of it will just rotate based on whoever has the most seats at that particular time, and that is more or less just how. Uh, it works, and the actual politics don't really matter. So let's see here. Maybe let's look at a couple of individual countries. Let's see where Germany is these days. Because Eurosceptic parties often do better in the. Okay. AfD is going to get. I'd be surprised if they didn't get more, to be honest. Is that the Nazbol party? Bundesrat. I wish they'd have in like brackets the English name, because I know most of them, but not all of them. So the AfD doesn't look like it's going to be doing quite as well as I thought it was going to do, but they'll probably pick up some seats in Germany. Let me see what other countries to look at. Ireland, Italy. Curious. Let's see where Poland's at. Yeah, it looks like yeah, Poland is, I think, fucked at this point. I think that Civic Platform has gained a plurality that will never be overthrown. My understanding is Donald Tusk has also just massively been doing huge purges in the Polish media and Polish government to try to cement their power permanently, so that they can never be removed again. I don't know, because Law and Justice thought it was a good idea to go all in on Project Ukraine, and the predictable happened. What's Italy looking like? So, my thinking on what happened with Maloney. So, for those of you who aren't aware, Georgia recently passed a foreign agents law that requires NGOs that receive more than 20% of their funding from foreign governments to register and declare themselves to be foreign funded. One of the EU commissioners called the Prime Minister of Georgia and said, "Look, you better stop this." I did a video on it. It was where the Godfather thing came from. It was like,
You know, we don't want you to be passing this law because any kind of transparency in NGO funding is against EU values. So what you got to do is cancel that. We got a nice spot at a hedge fund picked out for you. We can give you a nice job at the WTO or the World Economic Forum. We just need you to quash this law. Quash this law, defend the NGOs, and we'll get you that job. If you don't, you know what happened to Robert Fico? He brought division, and you see what happened. And there could be something like that could happen to you. And there could be some riots and civil unrest in your country over this contentious law. So we're going to need you to back down on that.
so yeah, they basically just said, we're going to assassinate you. Now, the Prime Minister of Georgia posted that. The EU Commissioner posted his side of the story, which actually just made it look worse rather than better. And I think that's what happened with Maloney, to be honest. I think that the EU or Tony Blinken or whoever, or Mr. Burns, went to her and basically just said that they would assassinate her or do something else unless she played ball. And then she just immediately capitulated and went along. I don't know if that is a charitable or uncharitable explanation of what wound up happening. But I feel like that happens in a lot of cases. Because if you look at how many... So I was going to do a map, but I was too lazy. If you look at the number of countries who have been either regime changed or regime change has been tempted or regime change has been threatened. Let me see here. Just trying to see here. Map chart. Yeah, okay, just let me... Okay. So, like, let's just look at this for a second. Okay, so countries that the U.S. has regime changed in the last, like, 20 years. Or since 2000. Okay, so Georgia's been regime changed. Armenia's been regime changed. Thailand has. Pakistan has. Myanmar has. Let me see who else is there. I'm just trying to see who else there is. Right, Ukraine has. I'm not. Libya, Iraq. Oops, no. Let me just switch that back to. Oh, oops. Okay, so let's just fill this out, just to kind of give this a bit of context. Okay, so let's start off with blue for direct regime change. So we have Thailand, Myanmar, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen. I think we can count Yemen, Libya, Ukraine, Armenia, Georgia. Has there been any Latin American ones in the last while? I don't know. So directly attempted regime change, we have, or you know what? I'm going to count Egypt because I'm going to count Arab Spring as American regime change. So I'm gonna count those countries, I think. Oh, we'll get to Africa in a second. Okay, so... One sec. Fuck. Okay, sorry. I'm just being a boomer here. Okay, so we'll do dark blue for countries that have been regime changed. Let's see. I'm trying to remember, was there any in East Asia? I feel like there was some I'm missing that they've done in the last little while. It's Ukraine. Okay, so we'll do that. Countries they've attempted to regime change. I would include within that Turkey, Belarus, Russia, Kazakhstan, I think Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan. Oh, I forgot to include Georgia under and Armenia under regime change. Iran. Who else is there? I think Moldova was. I'm not entirely sure, though, how that worked. I'm pretty sure most of the Balkans, though, they have actively been trying to do stuff with. Okay, so active regime change. Um, yeah, North Korea probably counts. The problem is they can't with China. Um, okay, they tried to regime change Syria. I think there was some Venezuela. Wow, maybe I'm missing some. Well, there was an attempt in Nigeria, in Niger, Mali, Mauritania, Equatorial Guinea, maybe Gabon. Um, I don't know the stats of Somalia really. I've tried to figure Somalia out, but I've never been able to be honest. Okay, and then countries that the U.S. has threatened to regime change. So, countries the U.S. has threatened to regime change. Let's see. I think South Africa? I feel like I'm missing some. I don't know. I'm okay. They threatened Bukele recently. Obviously, Cuba. They did attempt regime change in Bolivia. Although I support that because fuck Bolivia. But yeah, I think that's it. Maybe if someone can correct me if I'm missing some. But that's like the minimum of the kind of countries that they've been attempting to screw with over the last 20 years or so. So I feel like there's some other countries in Europe that I'm missing. Partially, I just don't really know what's been going on in Africa. Like, I don't know how involved they were in Sudan or some of these other places. Does the U.S. support Lula or Bolsonaro in Brazil? I never could really figure that out. Like, if who they were more in favor of, because Bolsonaro was more pro America, but Lula's more left wing. So I don't know which one. Anyways, I don't even remember why I was talking about that, but my point was, if you are someone who it all goes against what the EU or the US or the EU want, they will immediately attempt to overthrow you, and lead to some sort of. I'm pretty sure they threatened Saudi Arabia. Um, Yeah, there was an active attempt in Serbia from the Serbs for Violence Party. Now, why you would name a party the Serbs for Violence Party, I don't really know. I actually some parts of the world I just don't know that much about. Like, I don't know how involved the U.S. is in Philippines or Malaysia or Indonesia or or stuff like that. But yeah, so I don't think the EU election really matters per se. But it'll be an interesting kind of. No, okay, so it's technically called. It's not called Serbs for Violence. It's called. It's called Serbs Against Violence, but I call it Serbs for Violence. Um, because Serbs for Violence, I think, sounds funnier. What are they called now? Yeah, the Serbs for Violence party. Let's see. United for the victory of Serbia. We must. So many of these coalitions just have the like the most G slur names. I still think the worst party names. I have to make that list again because I had a list of like the 10 worst political party names of all time. I think Union for a Popular Movement won. It was that or the Authentic Radical Liberal Party. Because there's a Radical Liberal Party and then there was the Authentic Radical Liberal Party. Which were both pretty bad. So yeah, I don't think it particularly matters. People are acting like it's going to be a big deal. I just don't. I don't. What do you think, Rain? Do you want me to found the Canadians for Fluffy Cats? She's just curled up like a donut on my couch. So, who is this guy? This guy looks like a shit posting Chad. Danish People's Party. Look at that smirk. Somebody made a really good point. Someone made a really good point about populist leaders. Populist leaders either werewolf max or vampire max. But not both normally. Oh yeah, by the way, speaking of Spain. Queen. So yeah, so the Queen of Spain cheated on her husband. I don't like. It's baffling to me. To me, it's like some of the. To me, it's some of the most like baffling thing. It's blackpilling. It's blackpilling. Like King Felipe is such a Chad. Like I don't. You can feel how you won't like about him, but he's what, like 6'5" or something. 6'5". Yeah, he's 6'5.5". Like, so she cheated on this dude. Like, look at him. I don't know. I think King Felipe is a really good looking dude myself. He's definitely got the drip going. So even if you're 6'5" Chad and you're the King of Spain, women will still like cheat on you, which I just find really blackpilling, to be honest. I will say this though, their daughters are really beautiful. Spanish royal family. Let me see. Yeah, I think she was. I mean, you just never. I mean, there's a reason they say no hymen, no diamond. I mean, it's just how it is. I'm just trying to find. Where is King Felipe? So. Okay, she's 18 now. That's good. Yeah, I don't know. I find both of their daughters to be rather attractive women. Or at least in a couple of years they will be. But oh, she aborted her first child with her first husband in order to marry Felipe. Well, I guess buyer beware then. Just okay, well, I guess like you just don't stick your dick in that. Like no hymen, no diamond. unless she's a widow. That's completely different. I just want to always make that point. And if, like, there's a quote from Dune that's very important: never trust a traitor, even one you create. So never trust an adulterer, even if they cheated with you. Just don't. But yeah, so that came out, so that was kind of sad. But now that you tell me, I hadn't known that bit of background, so that makes me feel less bad for him. I more just feel bad for the kids. Something I've seen a lot of, though, is the whole, like, the whole people, like, shitting on Kate Middleton has pissed me off. So, for what my understanding of what happened is Kate Middleton just disappeared from the public eye for a little while. And no one really saw her or stuff like that. And so the general agreement that people had was that she was being abused, or there was a divorce, or some, like, nefarious thing was going on from behind the scenes. But it turned out she just had cancer and there wasn't any marital issues. So I will give it to Prince William. Prince William is a Chad. Prince William is a Chad. How many kids do they have now? They have 3 kids. George, Charlotte, and Louis. Oh, has Will been cheating on Kate? Or is that like is that a rumor? Because I'd have to, like, look into that more. Because people just kind of spread rumors like that all the time. Okay. I feel so bad for I don't know, just a lot of people living in the UK. I feel bad for anyone who lives in the UK. Entirely bad faith mudslinging to try and own. I kind of like William and Harry. To me, are kind of the duality of man. Let me see. Harry autobiography. William. This was like one of the most based. I don't know if this was supposed to make William look bad. It made him look like a Chad. Describing a confrontation at the at his London home in 2019, Harry says William called Meghan difficult, rude, and abrasive, which Harry called a parroting of the press narrative about his American wife. The confrontation escalated, Harry writes, until William grabbed him by the collar, ripping his neckline, and threw him to the floor. Let me see, where is it? Okay. Try to find it. Okay, he sat down a glass of water, called me another name, then came at me. It all happened so fast. I landed on the dog's bowl, which cracked into my back, the pieces cutting into me. I lay there for days and then got to my feet and told him to get out. Harry writes, then William left, but returned looking regretful and apologized. When William left again, Harry has said to write that his brother turned and called back, you don't need to tell Meg about this. You mean that attacked me? I didn't attack you, Harold. And Henry's name is not short for Harold. Just fucking power flex. It's so based. Like, William is such a Chad. Just reading the chat. This story is just propaganda by the royal family. Well, like, is it supposed to make William look good or look bad? Because to me it doesn't. It makes him look based. At least in that's like a Chad thing to do. Like, it's like your wife is this disrespectful bitch and then just punches him. It makes him look cool. Like, what am I? Okay, so looking at the chat. Just let me just read through some of these. I won't do what Review Check USA does and just respond to things without reading it out. So, Nog Gim says it's tough. The entire country is collapsing. Treben says it's not as bad as Australia, New Zealand, or Canada, to be fair. It depends what you mean by bad. I mean, they're better in some ways, they're worse in some ways. It's kind of hard. In terms of just being like a sheer, like, totalitarian 1984, like, Kafka-esque country, I think the UK is number one. I think the UK is substantially more totalitarian than Canada is. Not Gim says I would move to Australia or Canada if I could find a job there. Let's see here. William is a far left tree hugger and climate change fanatic. And I'll say this again, it's so sad that the environment has become this like highly partisan left-right issue where it's this hyper partisan left-right issue where like, if you're right wing, you're obligated to want to rape and like pillage the natural environment to own the libs, and the environmentalists are just the most insufferable cunts you'll ever deal with, who don't really care about the environment. They just hate people. They're just misanthropes who want humanity to go extinct, and that's more or less the way they look at the world. Whole entire house says I don't want to leave England, but it's so fucking depressing sometimes. Yeah, like I agree. I don't want to, like, people keep telling me to move to the US. Number one, I don't get like how the US is better. Where am I going to move in the, like, they're like, move to a red state. It's like, well, I guess most of the red states are hot though. They're hot, or there's not a lot of job prospects there. I don't know. Also, Canada's home. Like, I think people have to understand that. Like, as much as I shit on this country and as depressed as I get, it's still my home. I spent the first, like, 32 years of my life in southern Ontario, and now I live out west, and I don't know, it's just what I'm used to. It's where I grew up. Depending on which part of my family, some of my family has been in this country since the American Revolution. Some came here from England and Scotland during the teens, I think before World War One. They've been here a really long time, and I just don't want to. I don't know. I don't want to leave my home. Like, as I say, like, I hate because I love. It's like, if I didn't care about my country and I didn't have affection for it, I wouldn't be as upset as I am consistently by what it's like. I will say that much. I think the fact that I even care shows that I'm not a rootless cosmopolitan. Let's see. Bolsonaro is a disgusting man for calling himself a nationalist while raising the Amazon pride gem of his country. I agree. It's been Blairite slap since Blair. Stammer will be the UK's Trudeau, which is bleak. At least the Conservatives will get what they deserve. Yeah, I mean, there's that. It's bad. Now, I guess to kind of finish off, so for those of you who aren't aware, in the immediate aftermath of Trump's conviction for nobody knows, once again, actually, she's really cute. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Um, what was I talking about again? Oh yeah, so since Trump's conviction for 34 felony accounts of falsifying documents, that is what he was convicted on, of like probably like $300,000 total in falsified payments that he didn't make, that his lawyer made without telling him. Because of that, I'm just trying to like even describe. Okay, so he got convicted on that. Literally nobody cares. Literally no one cares about the conviction. And within the first, I think, 24 hours or something like that, Trump raised like 60 million dollars. And I think the 4 days after he was convicted, the Republican Party raised something like over $200 million. Trump, in the 4 days after his conviction, raised more money than Biden, I believe, has raised during the entire campaign season. I think Biden's raised like $130 million total. Trump was able to raise. Okay, so Trump. Let me see here. Trump. Yeah, Trump raises $200 million. How much in like 4 days? Biden total campaign fundraising. Yeah, so in comparison, Biden raised $90 million in March and $50 million in April. So that's $150 million. And then Trump raised over $200 million in like 4 days. So that stuff happened. And that's just during that time period. More money has gone up. Let's see here. Just trying to find. Does it say? Like, I'd like a chart for this, please. Give me a chart to show. Yeah, here we go. So this was in March. So Biden had raised like that much. So Trump just completely blew him out in the span of like a couple of days, like a couple of days. So we're entering into this election campaign where Trump has a fundraising advantage. Now, money is not everything in politics, but my understanding is last election he was at a massive financial disadvantage. So the fact that like we are that Trump is actually like holding his ground, if not winning. Now, a lot of the donations came from small donors. I think more than 25% came from new donors. Now, this is obviously a very small sample, but when I was looking at just the comment sections on Twitter, there was a lot of people who were like, I don't like Trump, but this is bullshit, so I'm going to vote for him. I've never donated to anybody before, but I'm going to donate to Trump. Because it's just so retarded, and it's so obviously political. I just like it. I don't think it's even. My prediction was it wasn't going to affect the polls. Yeah. So let's look at the national poll. Let's see if the national polls have changed at all since Trump's conviction. My prediction was it was going to be like maybe 1% one direction or another, but not a like a huge shift overall. Okay, so let's see, 12 days. What day was the conviction? Was that like June 1st? Yeah, so it's basically stayed the same. It looks like maybe RFK picked up a little bit. Yeah, so like it didn't really affect it at all. They're still pretty much the same as they were previously. Let me see. I think okay, so I think the people who I think what it did is it hardened the people who were mildly supportive or mildly against Trump. I don't think there was that many people who were mildly against Trump. I kind of feel like there was a bunch of that's just a vitamin, by the way. I'm just taking my multivitamin while I remember. I feel like there's a lot of Republicans who are waffling on whether they were going to bother voting for Trump, and this was like, no, we're going to go all in on him. This is complete bullshit. Whereas the Democrats who are anti-Trump were already just 100% anti-Trump. Now, so Arizona has not moved in the last 30 days. I still don't think Trump's going to win Arizona. I think Trump will probably win Georgia. I think they did pass election reform in Georgia. Now, the whole Trump's not going to win the black vote. He's not going to win a significant portion of the black vote. But once again, if he could get the black vote from being like 96% Democrat to like 90%, in some swing states that could be very significant. Even if they just don't vote, which I think is probably more going to happen than any of them voting for Trump. Michigan, it looks like Biden picked up a little bit of steam in Michigan over the last, but even so, like it's not a huge switch. Yeah, okay, so it's keep in mind this is all within margin of error. It's gone from being like 8.8% apart to being 0.5% apart. Like that's nothing. That's just statistical noise. I do think Trump is going to win Nevada. I'm fairly confident of that one. I don't even know why North Carolina is considered to be a swing state, to be honest. It's kind of, I guess. Pennsylvania. I don't know. I'm not sure. Let's for shits and giggles do an electoral map just while we're here, to end this off. Map. We'll do what I think. What mine is. I think this is it. I want to make my own. Okay. So, we are going to assume ethics in video game journalism for this map. We're going to assume that this is conducted under the highest standards of ethics in video game journalism. So, I don't think Texas and I think Texas and Florida are safe at this point in time. Iowa's safe. Ohio's safe. I think North Carolina is likely. I think Virginia is going to be lean. I don't think Trump will take it, but I think it's possible. Minnesota, I think, is lean. I think Nevada is lean at this point. I actually, maybe this will be a cold take. I actually think Wisconsin is tilt blue. I just feel that the Wisconsin Republican Party is so incompetent. that they will find some way to fuck it up, because they just seem to fuck it up every single election cycle now. So I just don't. There's no reason that they shouldn't be able to pull off an easy win, but they're so inept. I think they're going to manage it somehow. Georgia, I think, is lean. Everything I've seen is that Biden has given up basically on Georgia, and they're just going to let that go to Trump. And so the election will really, in my opinion, come down to no. I think Nevada is tilt to lean Republican. Everything I've seen has indicated that. Even just going purely by the polls. Where's Nevada? Trump's up like 5 there. Okay, I'll split the difference and we'll say tilt red. So this all comes down to Pennsylvania. Let me see. Can Trump win without Pennsylvania? Let's see. If he wins Michigan, is that enough? Yes. Okay, Michigan. So he needs to win Michigan or Pennsylvania, and I don't know if there's really a path to victory that doesn't include one of those. I think maybe Nevada? Maybe if he wins Arizona and Wisconsin. Yeah, Arizona and Wisconsin would also do it. So he needs either Michigan, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin, Arizona. I don't think Nevada actually matters, just given how the math works. I don't think it actually really matters if he wins it or not. Oh, no, Michigan. Okay, no, it does. Michigan and Nevada could win him it. So I think, honestly, I think this is probably how it's going to go. I think it's everything I've seen is that it's all going to come down to Pennsylvania. To be honest, I just feel like that the Republican Party in Wisconsin and Arizona are so incompetent. Like they're like, it's like hiring Nick Rekieta as your lawyer. I think is what the equivalent is. I'm trying to think. Is there any other like? People keep saying that New York is going to be within like a narrower margin. It might be within a narrower margin. Now, looking at some of these, like, okay, so where is Virginia? So Virginia, it looks like Virginia is in play, or it's competitive or something like that. I don't think it actually is. I think if Trump can get it to the point where Biden has to sink resources into it, that's probably about all he needs there. But so I don't know. So that is mine with ethics in video game journalism. The poll without ethics in video game journalism. So how realistically I think this is going to go. How this probably will wind up going in real life. Let me see. This is how I think the election will probably actually go. in my opinion. This might be like a little generous, to be honest. I'm trying to think if there's any other red states that... The problem is that Florida and Texas, I think, have pretty strict laws on ethics in video game journalism. So I don't think there's really much that can be done there. But I would actually say, practically speaking, I think that Wisconsin is probably likely blue. I just feel like it's just so incompetent there. They're going to find some way. And Virginia should be safe blue. And Nevada, whatever, is also safe blue. It's just like Wisconsin should be like Iowa or something, where the Republicans just win it by like a ridiculous margin, but for whatever reason they just don't. They have a super majority in the House there, but I don't know, Vindel. You're bringing in some sort of like conspiracy theory. Ethics in video game journalism has nothing to do with election fraud. I'm just talking about review bombing and well, because there's like review bombing where like people, particularly bots, will come in and just post a whole bunch of reviews that'll change the rating of the game when it's decided upon. You got fake news about the game and stuff like that, but no, it's nothing. It's not a euphemism. It's I denounce and reject this claim that I would ever question the integrity of the American election process. Let me see here. I'm just going to do a poll before we wrap this up. Let's do a poll. Okay, we'll put up the poll to end this. Okay, so the poll is, assuming that there is ethics in video game journalism, who will win the election? Okay, it looks like people strongly believe that the Donald can rise above it. The people believe that the Don is he's gonna get that high score on Metacritic. That the review bombing by bots isn't gonna do it. Yeah. So I think that's it for today's show. Thank you everybody for checking it out. God bless. We have lots more exciting